Greetings, everyone. So, Lee Hoffmann again, Western Cape Teachers Forum. And as promised, we are chatting to Mr. Kurt Minnaar this evening. We are spoiled by his presence here, and we thank him for his time. Kurt, good evening to you. How are you?
Well, thank you, yourself, Lee.
Great, Kurt. Kurt, now, from my homework tells me that you are a mathematics high school teacher. You've been teaching at Kraaifontein High School for a number of years. You also started your own NGO that focuses on teaching and developing teaching strategies for mathematics resources and so on. You also host a number of workshops for, among others, the Global Teachers Institute, Zenex Foundation, the Western Cape Education Department, Inclusive Education South Africa, the Chikululu Organization, NAPTOSA Teachers Union, and Varsity College in Port Elizabeth. What are you currently busy with? What's happening in the world of Kurt Minnaar these days?
So, at the beginning, everything just started with me creating a new way of teaching using hip-hop ed within the teaching space, which is not really used in South Africa, or that often in the mainstream classroom. And then since then, I've just been developing it further because I realized that was great, but we needed to be more to capture the curriculum because nobody's really going to take you serious in terms of getting it baked into the curriculum if it's only a small portion. So I've been developing more topics, new ways of teaching using dance, music, and design, which is the arts, basically the arts. And the most recent thing is for me now to test it, theoretically as well and practically. So I'm actually starting this term with the rest of the teachers at a school in Mitchell's Plain. So that's basically what's been happening.
Kurt, my heart has a different beat when I speak to passionate people like yourself. And honestly, I've been in the education sector for quite a while, and it's not very seldom or it's not always that you find people of your caliber that is passionate about the work that they do. So keep on doing what you're doing, and only our learners can benefit from that. Now, Kurt, we've got thousands, hundreds and thousands of very concerned and anxious teachers of public schools that are to be reporting for duty come Monday, the 25th of May. That is on the instruction of the basic Department of Education. And we know that school management teams have been at school for the past week to prepare and get all the precautionary measures in place if that happened. What are your thoughts on the current situation in terms of the reopening of schools?
Well, I side with the group of people or the masses which think that it's way too soon. And that's purely because the risk is too high at this moment. You know what I mean? We know we must go back. And I think a lot of the teachers want to go back, but we don't want to go put ourselves in a position where we're going to contract the virus. And also, I don't think it's the smartest thing to go back just before it peaks and be teaching when it peaks. I've been reading up on, so from a health perspective, people have been saying that, kids won't easily contract the virus. They also won't pass it on. And I've been reading a couple of the stuff, but it still comes down to there hasn't been enough tests done. There's still a lot of uncertainty. Do you know what I mean? So that doesn't make me comfortable as a parent or as a teacher. Also, they say that, adult working environments, they are more susceptible to contracting the virus than kids environments. But for me, schools are a combination of the two. It's adults and it's kids. Do you know what I mean? And they speak of breakouts is going to be the norm. You know what? If that is the norm moving forward, let that then happen in a space where we have more control over what's going on, how the virus works. But for that to happen in its peak, it's extremely scary. And then I think Alan Winde, Premier Alan Winde said recently that even in the best case situation, we probably won't have enough ICU beds with all the preparation. And that makes me as a parent, as a teacher, it makes you a bit nervous, or it scares you. So that's from the health perspective. And also, I think it was Nick Spall, he's also doing some research on everything, and he's talking about the kids that are not really susceptible in that studies have been doing this 0 to 10 years old. I mean, even if we had to then follow best practice or what the health experts are saying, we are sending grade 7s and grade 12s back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're not even following that. So it's scary. Then if I look at how the National Department of Education is just handling it, you know what I mean? If you look at the history, they didn't have the history, greatest history of delivering. Do you know what I mean? When we talk about the past 25 years in democracy, everybody's always saying, you know, there's more kids that are getting into school, more kids that are getting into school. But when we look at the quality, it's still horrible. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's bad. There's schools that haven't been seen to since '94 that are
Yeah.
still messed up.
It's
You know what I mean?
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that some schools are claiming that they do not have, as we speak, running water and sanitation. And so, apart from the PPE and all of the protective gear and things that need to be in place for people to return, there's the issue of water and sanitation. Your thoughts on that?
Like, I mean, how many 25 years to provide schools with water and sanitation, and I've been to Limpopo about a year or two back, and I worked there. And there are schools that are intense. I tell you, the pit latrine, a small child, one of the toilets, I saw a small child, and I understand why kids die in those toilets. You could fall and in a nutshell, it's just like you should have at least been able to sort out the infrastructure then in the past 25 years. Do you know what I mean? And now
Yeah.
we're going to rush, and they're talking about what is the on-time delivery they're talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, how is that even possible? We know that it's not going to happen. So, personally, I just feel like it's unacceptable. I feel like we should have provided more. We should have had more. We should have seen more progress.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Up until this time.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then
Yeah.
you know that what I find is when these things happen, it always comes back down to the inequalities that still exist.
Yeah.
In
And that is what one thing that this pandemic has taught us is for certainly, or one of the things at least, is to expose the inequalities. I think, for example, that more than 70% of learners currently under lockdown do not have access to what you and I enjoy right now: online resources to communicate with one another, to engage in online learning.
Yes.
Now, credit to the department for opening up the online portals, you know, the learning channels and all of that. But what about that child that sits in the township right now that's unable to access that? So the day that he returns to the classroom, along with his mates who are able to do so, there's immediately that unequal footing. And so that in itself creates a challenge.
Yes, no, 100%.
Yeah.
I think, like, I know, what was it? I think they said 1 in every 10 households have a computer with internet. And it's 6 in every 10 have a cell phone with internet.
Sure.
I personally don't understand why they cannot trim or cut the papers just to cover the work that will be covered.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't get it. I don't know why it's so difficult. I know, as I spoke, I posted and asked if it does take 2 years to create the papers. And then someone said people are contracted on a 2-year period. And that they set the papers up. So for this year, they basically used backup papers. But now I cannot understand, not that it's an easy job, why they cannot trim the paper, right? I've been in contact with one of my ex-pupils that's actually in matric now, but he's now being supported with a with data and stuff. And listen to this interesting story. He's got a tablet that's battery is dying all the time, right?
Yeah.
His cell phone isn't the greatest. So what he actually done was he told his parents not to pay school fees for 2 years, for 2 months, took that money and went to go buy him a second-hand laptop. Now, I think that's incredibly resourceful, but these are the measures that some of the kids have to go to. And he was telling me about his neighbor that's also in matric that doesn't know, they really don't know how they're going to cope or how they're going to do it because they're not mentally in the right place.
Yeah.
They don't have the support they need, but yet they're going to have to compete with the haves and the have-nots.
Tell me all about it. I mean, when we were on varsity, you know, those were some of the things that we were confronted with as students, you know, who were not always as privileged to enjoy some of those things. Good Professor Hanson, he has been quoted as saying that, "I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but the school year is over." How do you respond to that?
I think so, especially with the way things are playing out now. I agree that it is over. I do think what he said about putting the kids over grade 1 to 11. I think that should happen. And I think we should focus maybe on the grade 12s. But I personally cannot see us going back and everything running smoothly, because it's not going to run. It's not going to run smoothly, because you're going to go back. You're going to have teachers that are stressed out and worried. And when we go back to school, we're just talking about the education sector. Teachers aren't trained to focus on, the psychosocial needs, the holistic learner. I won't be able to help a learner navigate their stresses and their fears and their worries. So the quality of the teaching, we're going to have to question that as well. Also, what is it? We lost like 40 or 50 odd days for the kids that's going back now. That's, if you look at the matric year, it's very short. So that's a large percentage. So it's a mess.
Yeah, no. I mean, that from grade 1 to 11, they are proposing a curtailed curriculum where they're going to cut out some of the non-essential sort of content that, and so focus on the core concepts within the subjects. Now, in matric, that is not going to be the case. So their curriculum will stand as is. Now, so I'm thinking about the teacher. Let's leave the learner for one. I mean, I don't want to discount the learner's experience, but think about that teacher that needs to teach the balance of the curriculum, or what's been lost within this space of time that you have left. Now, as much as the physical precautionary measures were attempted to be put in place, like your mask and your sanitizer and all of it, let's hypothetically say that is in place. What about the psychosocial support of that teacher that is anxious and concerned about contracting the virus, worried about social distancing, worried about his children or his family at home? I don't know. If I look back to my time in the classroom, I don't know how I would be able to execute something like that.
Yeah, and for a fact there will be no employee wellness for teachers or bodies coming in to support us as teachers in the classroom. And I've also been thinking a lot about the pedagogical, part of this. We're trying to move towards a learner-centered approach within our teaching. It's going to go back to choke and talk at this very moment, because, we can't do group work. I won't be able to do group work at the moment. What is it? It's the group work. It's going to be a problem, number one. Number two, how are we going to react to the kids? If someone coughs, if someone sneezes, that's one issue. But also, if I'm not in a good space, some teachers really hack it with the children, if they can't handle it. They could be more on edge at this very moment. You can't hand out papers and take the papers back again. If you do, you're going to have to be even more, going to have to sanitize and get that done. And in that time, you're losing more teaching time. And even, with classroom management, the second floor of schools, that narrow corridor you have between the door and now you're going to have, when the other grades come in, how on earth are you going to manage the kids? Because kids are going to walk in and we're going to have to manage them. Okay, you sit here. But we're also going to have to kind of support the kids. Yeah. Have to support the kids that's coming into the class. But I've been thinking about the teaching part. And, someone was saying, teachers are going to do the best they can. And we are going to do the best we can. But just in terms of quality teaching and learning, it's already, if you look at stats, it's already bad in South Africa. And I feel it's even worse now, man.
I totally agree with you. Now, the learners have been away from each other for almost 2 months, right? Can you just think back when you were a school-going learner, that excitement on the first day back after a very long holiday? You were excited to see your brother, your friends, you want to hug, you want to meet, So at this stage, they're not coming to school to concentrate on algebra and geometry and parts of speech. They would want to socialize. And so that speaks directly to the issue of social distancing.
No, we know that's not going to work. The kids are going to go boss, man, bro. The kids are going to still, the kids share food, they share sweets, they're playing on, they're rolling on the grass, they're going boss. And it's already difficult under normal conditions for teachers to control and just keep an eye on everybody during, for example, break. Now you expect us to keep an eye on them, and we must still separate them, break or keep them apart. That's not going to happen. And even in class, stationery, they're going to share stuff, bro. How are we going to stop them from sharing stuff? And I am sitting here and I miss certain family and friends, And when I see them, I really want to just hug them and talk, but now we can't do that. And kids even more so. I don't know, because in kids' nature, it's in their nature to
absolutely,
move.
We are nocturnal beings. We thrive on human interaction and physical touch engagement. You know what I mean? Listen, So I want to read to you quickly what somebody on the page has written. I think it was yesterday. Oh no, I quoted somebody. So Caroline Lowe, she's a mother of. Okay, just this is what Caroline Lowe wrote. Good morning. Since I heard schools reopened, I have become a restless, worried, confusing, questionable, and sleepless parent. I'm sitting with a matric learner who's cerebral impaired. How assured
Oh,
can I be of his safety at school? Now I'm still sitting with my hands in my hair because if I don't send him, I can be fined.
oh wow. Um, I don't, I don't think anybody can be assured of their safety, and that's one of the reasons everybody doesn't want to go back. I mean, even more so for this parent now, for this learner, because I didn't even understand really the nature of the schools for learners with different needs, like cerebral palsy. But I fully, and that is why we need leadership at this moment that's going to really convince us and really make us feel comfortable and secure and like knowing that they know what they're doing and they are going to look after us, because it's the basics of humanity, isn't it? It comes down to making us feel like, oh my word, we can follow you, you know what you're doing. And now because of the way we're being led and the plan that's in place, you've got parents feeling, you have parents feeling like that.
Yeah,
I've got another friend whose wife not too long ago passed on. The death is still fresh in the kids' minds, and they are freaked out because they're hearing about all the deaths now and the numbers of COVID. So sadly, ultimately, it comes down to your safety isn't assured. SABC building, for example, now.
yeah,
And come on, you can bet that SABC had everything in place. They've got a big building with various floors, right? And they had everything in place, yet someone is positive and all those people are now in isolation,
yeah,
right? So I mean, we're not stupid, you know, we're not sitting here going, oh, okay, cool, we're just going to listen to you.
yeah.
The other article, 150 frontline workers also positive now.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Let's,
It's so complex. I don't know what to say to
yeah,
a parent like that.
yeah. Let's look at an opposing view. So there's the issue of a child or a learner who depends on that breakfast or lunch from the feeding scheme as the only meals for the day. And
Yeah.
so the school becomes a resource for nutrition. How do we argue that?
I, do you know, so the one thing when I think about that is I want to know why did they prevent the NGOs from doing the work that they are doing? Because a lot of the NGOs are feeding people in the community, right? That's the one thing. And I'm very empathetic, and I feel for these people. I genuinely do. But you know, I don't think all schools are also feeding people. Sorry, hang on. Why are we not rallying community workers, people that's already in the community, people that understand the community, to feed these kids if food is the main thing? I know that the second thing they speak about besides food is educational resources, right?
Yeah,
They speak about internet access and resources that they're also going to get at school that they don't have there. In South Africa, the truth is most of our schools don't have internet. Most of our schools don't have resources. If we can just have these people fed properly, and if the government can just move money and get it to them properly, then we can still feed these people.
well,
But isn't um, every child is representing a household? So if we go back to schools, these people are going to could possibly just get sick, and the family gets sick then.
yeah. Okay, so then there's another issue of, like, you would know that in this public school setup, you have WCED, or let's say departmental employees, and
Yeah.
then you have governing body employees. So those educators being paid by the school, the governing bodies, some schools have now informed the employees that they are unable to honor the salary payments per month
Yes.
because of school fees that are not being collected as a result of the lockdown. What do we say to those educators who would want to earn a living, but obviously, uh, what do we say to them? How do we respond to them?
I don't know. I think it should be framed as in why can't the government support and help pay these people? I think that should ultimately be the conversation, because we are dependent on these teachers. You know what I mean? We should genuinely have them at the school, because now classes are going to become bigger. So they are just obviously going to resign. Not resign, they're going to either have to stop or they're going to resign. And they're going to look for different posts somewhere else, or look for different income. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
All right.
should be done completely differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, so some parents are considering, or in fact not considering, but opting to homeschool their children, right? Because
Yeah.
out of obviously fear and concern. So,
Yeah.
but there's a process to follow there. You need to follow some homeschool guidelines from the DVE. It must be approved, and you get support from the circuit if it's so approved. Now that brings another challenge because now your child gets homeschooled. Let's say that approval is granted, but at some point,
Yeah.
I, as the parent, need to return to work. So who now supervises my child at home? So that brings another angle to this conversation because so now you just sort of drawn between: do I send my child to school because I don't have anybody to look after him whilst he's being homeschooled, or you get my point?
No, it's look at this whole situation is extremely complex.
Yeah,
Those that do follow the homeschooling route obviously make sure they fully understand what homeschooling entails. And for those that for who it's viable, they could practice their right to send their kids for homeschooling. But if you can't, like I don't even have answers for all these things because
yeah.
it's obviously really complex.
Yeah, look, it's uncharted territory. So, and that is the purpose of this conversation, and many other people who use us. We know too little about this. Nobody has ever
Yeah.
been confronted with this situation. So there are too many uncertainties at this
Yes.
stage, and people are trying to make sense of what's happening around them. And these things that we are touching tonight is just a tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
Kurt, now you are a creative as well. You're a dancer and you're a hip hop
Yeah.
artist. And so I looked at one of your presentations that you did. I'm not sure at what institution it was, but you say, for example, what you've learned from hip hop was to bring something new to the table, to be
Yeah.
unpredictable, to rep your
Definitely.
work, to be hardworking. Now, how can we incorporate that? How can we use that and assist our teachers who are now having to go back into the classroom, especially our matrix learners, teachers who are now having to cover the entire curriculum. How can we incorporate those principles into some of
But
the teaching?
is this in order to cover the whole curriculum? You see,
Well,
the thing is, the dope thing about the creativity side, especially with the hip hop, is that one of the things is you're making something from almost nothing, and you're going in with a creative mindset. How can I change these things, right? So the one thing I would say to teachers is we're going to learn as things go now when we go back to school, right? Day one, day we're going to pick some things up, and when we pick it up, we're going to have to make it happen and implement it day by day. We can't be, we definitely in this time, we cannot be sticking to our old ways. There's no way that we can do that. And it's making me also think differently now because it makes me think about my practice now. I'm going to take my practice online because definitely post COVID, that's going to become a thing and it's going to be a major agenda on the department's page. But I definitely think teachers need to now think of these different ways in which they can teach, the different ways we can tackle problems, and then we can share. Because with hip hop, it's about sharing, it's about creativity, it's about bringing your flavor and your culture to the table and delivering. So I think teachers need to be able to share in our schools when we go back. They literally, SMTs, teachers, principals need to listen to each other. We also have to have conversations with the parents and get their input as to how we're going to make this work. Hip hop is just one whole big community. And we need to now, for example, in schools, what I found was you have teachers sitting there with a dope skill set, right? Other than what they studied, but it's not being pulled in or used in the school. Do you know what I mean? So if there's a teacher there that dances or a teacher does that's good now with the whole online good, because you'll find teachers that didn't study IT or they don't teach IT, but they've got all the skills. You're going to need to draw on these people now. So figure out who can do what and bring it to the table. And we definitely have to have an open conversation and be up for new flipping ways of doing things. Because it's always been, we do it this way, we do it this way. It's always the bureaucracy, it's protocols. We cannot do that anymore. I think it's because of that we're also ill-positioned to face this pandemic at the moment.
So it's about pooling our resources and that is what I gather from that.
And connecting it.
Yeah.
And in connecting it, because you might have a skill using certain IT goodies, right? I might have a great idea. I might have a great idea which is completely different, and we can sit together and see how these two fit together for us to achieve our goal. Also, nothing should be off limits now. Do you know what I mean? Stripping the curriculum. Nothing. We should, we have the perfect, everybody's talking about, resetting everything now. But I feel like we're really squandering that opportunity now to really reset and almost try and level this playing field, which we aren't doing. You know what I mean? Yeah, but one thing I wanted to mention was the positives, though, is like I like the conversations happening online now. I've never seen this amount of dialogue amongst teachers and parents ever. I like when you look at the WCED, the CTLI, I've got this WhatsApp post to teach teachers how to teach using WhatsApp. That's for me is incredible. Also, just this happening between the two of us. You know what I mean? This is great. So that's a major positive, and that is, for me, this is new for our education system. It's been happening on a very small scale, but now it's everybody almost. It's just a pity that a lot of teachers and learners were the biggest, it's actually about, isn't all this actually about the learners?
Absolutely.
The conversations we're having, it's going to impact them the most. It's a pity that we haven't really pulled on what teachers and learners feel. Do you know what I mean? Like matric learners, how do the kids feel? What do they think about the situation during this?
And that brings me to my last and final question. If you were to send a message of hope to our learners at this moment, where they all have had different experiences under lockdown, they all are facing the same fate, however, by going back to school, right?
Yeah.
What would you say to them at this stage?
No, this is a tricky one, because I'd like to say, go back, stick to the precautionary measures and everything, and you'll be safe. But we can't guarantee that at the moment, right? But what I'd like to say to the teachers and learners, I guess, is that you are valuable. You've got a voice, and you've been thinking about these things, right? And it's moving forward. It's almost in a way to fight to have your voice heard, right? It's to think about all these issues critically, and to be corny maybe is to actually use that to bring the change that we need, because it's going to take a collective effort. And also for learners, for example, to look at how our leadership is handling this. Do you know what I mean? And sit and go, okay, cool. Maybe you should have done it like this and do it like that. And know that you are learning at this. You are learning how to maybe handle and deal with things. Like I'm going to tell you a cool story quickly that I find very interesting. One of my ex-pupils during lockdown, and I found this inspiring. His parents were in East London. He was alone at home, right? So he had to learn to cook during this time, and he has to study during this time. And for what he said got him through all this was the fact that he had gone to the bush for the circumcision.
Yeah.
And it's about survival.
Sure.
And he took that, and that gave him the mental strength to get through this. So what I want to say is, you have the mental capacity and the strength to get through this. It might not be easy. There might be things you have to deal with afterwards. But just know that, you got this. And yeah, tell what you must.
Tell what you must. Good. I'm excited about education.
Me too,
when I listen to you speak with so much passion and conviction, I'm excited. And so, allow me to thank you at this stage for a wonderful engagement. When I reached out to you on Facebook, I took it was a shot in the dark. I thought, I thought I'm hoping the gentleman is going to respond, because the purpose of this engagement really is to share common fears. It's to share our resources. It's to pool our resource. It's to get this conversation going, because we have a complement of teachers currently that are concerned. They're fearful. They're worried. Some of them are excited to get back. Some are. It's a mixed breed of emotions currently. And if these conversations can make a little dent in some of those concerns that they may have, then I think we've done a great job. So allow me to thank you very much for your time. It was an absolute honor, a pleasure to chat to you tonight. And I wish you success upon success
Same to you, bro.
as you continue to be a trailblazer in our sector. And I'm hoping that this won't be the last of our engagements.
Yeah, definitely won't be the last. And thank you for, for doing what you're doing now. This content is really dope. A lot of us been watching, and we're really drawing something from it that's giving us, that extra oomph to go back and keep doing what we're doing. So thank you for this. This is incredible, and I'm sure it's going to continue post-COVID.
Absolutely, post-COVID. Good. It was a draw. Keep well, buddy.
Shot, man.